You definitely want to
Gotta
promote.
support my driver, Dale Earnhardt Jr. Come on, Junior, get that win.
This is probably the only time you're ever going to see in Brandon Snow's career a Tony Stewart background with a Dale Earnhardt hat.
That's for sure.
We just did this because we had to.
Hey, I'm going to say
That's the only thing we could
straight
do.
out, Tony Stewart's a great race car driver. He's got great equipment with Hendricks and all that. I'm just not a Tony Stewart fan. I'm sorry. I'm partial to the Earnhardt family because I saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. drive up through his way in the Nationwide Series. I'm not a jump on the bandwagon Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan like most of the guys that have actually gone with Junior.
So it's pretty fair to say right now this is the first and the last time you ever see anything but Earnhardt background?
Earnhardt Jr., yes.
Oh, Earnhardt Jr. specifically?
Earnhardt Jr. specifically, yes. Because I am.
I mean, you can be a fan of his dad, but you think Junior is like the top notch, right? You think the Junior can surpass
Honestly, I
his
think
father?
Junior right now hasn't even reached his epitome as a race car driver. I think with right now, with how that team is running, Steve Letarte, with the genius that he is, and he can set up the race cars for what Junior needs. Honestly, I think he, right now, has been sounding better than he has in the past, probably, I'd say, 6 to 7 years. Hell, even maybe better than he even drove with the Uris. And what I mean by the Uris was even when he was winning races in the A car, being competitive in the Nextel Cup Series before, obviously, the COT.
So you think that Dale Earnhardt Jr. has a good shot at the next 500?
Well, this weekend they're running at Pocono. Dale Jr. runs good there. It's not even about every race. What it's really about for Dale Earnhardt Jr., Dale Jr. needs to believe in himself as a driver, and he needs to believe in his fans, because his fans will never leave him. Junior had, like I said, I've said, I've been listening to Dale Earnhardt Jr. for probably the past 7 years on the radio. Dale Earnhardt Jr. now sounds even better than he did when he was winning races with Tony Uri Sr. in the A car. And I think it's only literally a matter of time until Steve Letarte and Dale Earnhardt Jr. can actually finally get that 88 car in victory lane. I'm telling you, Junior fans, it's gonna happen. It's a matter of time. Past 3-4 weeks, hell, even since Daytona, he got wrecked. Even after since then, right now, Dale Earnhardt Jr. has been confirmed by even NASCAR as the most consistent driver of this year, which everybody's talking shit about Dale Earnhardt Jr., saying he can't drive a race car, saying that he doesn't have the passion that he had when he first started. Let me tell you something about Dale Earnhardt Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr. never lost his passion. What happened was he, after his dad died, I think he lost a little bit of focus, which honestly, if you're a race car driver, and I have passion about racing, once you have, hell, if my dad died in a race car, I think that mentally fucked me for a couple of good years. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has never lost his ability to drive a race car. What Dale Earnhardt Jr. lost was the ability to tell his crew chief what he needed. I've said for years myself as a Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan that he should go back to Tony Uri Sr. or, Uri Jr. I think he's good on the Nationwide Series. Nothing against Uri Jr., I think he's just better off in the older technology. And it's nothing against him. He's used to the coil bind setup, which is what most of those race cars run, even in the Nationwide Series. Even with them being on the COT platform, they are still on the coil bind setup, which is, and as NASCAR fans, you would honestly know that that is not a coil bind setup.
Alright, so what do you think Junior needs to do to be more successful for his next race?
Well, this weekend, I think one of the biggest problems, especially at Pocono, I can tell you this, I've been playing NASCAR games probably since I was 5 years old. The first time I think I raced on Pocono, I was about 12 or 13. One of the hardest things in that track is to get your car on the bottom on turn 1. Because you hit this bump and it just shoots you right up the racetrack. It upsets your suspension. There's really nothing you can do. I think what Junior really needs to keep on doing is honestly what Steve Letarte and Dale Earnhardt Jr. have been working on this year. They're consistent in their finishes. Right now, like I have said, Junior Nation, listen to me when I'm telling you right now. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is on the best stride that I have ever seen him consistently without a win keyword. We're not even, 20 races into the season yet? If Dale Earnhardt Jr. is running this competitively, he is definitely going to get his win. It's just going to take some time. They've got to figure out what's going on. Look, 2 races in a row. We've had our fuel problems. Everybody, like, this whole ethanol, with them throwing ethanol at NASCAR, me, myself, even going to BOCES as an engine builder, ethanol, you cannot throw into a high compression engine like that, and that's why a lot of engine failures have been happening this year, because they've been putting way too much ethanol in these engines and they're not ready for it. Dale Earnhardt Jr. this year has been competitively running better than I can honestly say myself as a diehard Junior fan has probably ever been running in his career. All that he really needs right now is to keep on doing what he has been doing with Steve Letarte, which they have been meshing as a team. Steve Letarte is a genius, and you NASCAR fans out there that really care about the sport, you guys know that Steve Letarte is exactly what Dale Earnhardt Jr. needs. Junior just needs to keep on running the way he is running. That win's going to come. I honestly, if anything, kind of think right now maybe that team might even be trying a little bit too hard. I might be even wrong by saying that, but for the past couple weeks, that 88 team may not be fast in practice, but come race time, that 88 team is at least the second fastest car on that track. And the way that the COT platform has changed with the downforce and everything that they have thrown at this car, honestly, I do have to say, I give Dale Earnhardt Jr. and I give Rick Hendrick and I give all the guys that build those race cars a hell of a lot of credit, because I'm not in NASCAR, but I know what it takes to build a race car, to be able to go around a turn at 170 or 190, whatever racetrack it may be. He's got the right guys around him this year. Key word. He's got the right guys around him this year. Obviously, before years with Lance McGrew was not good for Dale Earnhardt Jr. And I think, if anything, last year the reason why Junior ran so bad is if you really listen to him on the radio. Hell, if anything, Lance McGrew was actually talking shit to Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the radio. And I tell you what, you don't ever want to talk shit to an Earnhardt on the radio, because you know for a fact that any Earnhardt that is behind the wheel, whether it be Dale Jr. or whether it be, hell, even Kelly in her own right is an awesome racer from what I've heard, because she's actually been in a few race cars here and there. And what's his name there? Jeffrey Earnhardt. I think, honestly, Dale Earnhardt Jr. needs to step up, and I think he needs to do what's right, and I think he needs to help out his brother, and he needs to get him in a nationwide ride. My ultimate point, obviously, is to tell a diehard Junior fan, my ultimate point about the NASCAR thing, and obviously after this, I'm definitely going to leave NASCAR and I'm just going to do normal car stuff. Everyone that's been talking about Dale Earnhardt Jr. and talking shit about him for the past 2 years and really needs to back off that man. And the reason why I say that is because Dale Earnhardt Jr. is one of the hardest drivers out there. He really he applies himself to every race, no matter what that track is, to try to, hell, win. Because when you're in NASCAR, that's what it's about. It ain't being about consistent, it's about winning. And especially the way this chase is set up. And that's another thing. Everybody's talking about the chase. Everybody says Dale Earnhardt Jr. is not going to make that chase. Let me tell you something. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is running third in points right now. Let me ask you a question. If you think he's running this good now, you're telling me a couple of races from now when they go back to these tracks that he's not going to win? I call you a liar right now. He's there, and he is doing exactly what Dale Earnhardt Jr. needs to be doing as a driver, and that 88 team is working as possibly hard as they can with that 48 team, which I do have to say, Chad Knaus, you are a genius. Jimmie Johnson, not too much of a fan of you. You're a great race car driver. I just don't like how you apply yourself and how you kind of talk shit, how you think that you deserve 5 straight championships. Because let me tell you something, Jimmie Johnson. You don't deserve 5 straight championships. The only thing that gave you 5 straight championships is the actual guys that built them race cars day in and day out, because I know what it takes in a sport like that. I've watched this sport since 4 years old. You have no right to call yourself a 5-time champion. And let me tell you something, I think Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to be the guy to knock you off your 6th championship this year, and that's all I have to say about NASCAR.
Alright, Brandon, thank you very much for your comments. NASCAR probably loves you for your opinions.
Nah, I don't know about love. Hell, if anything, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate mail because of this, but I can deal with that.
Take the good with the bad. Alright, Brandon,
right.
Thank you very much.
And you know what? Hell, I got respect for good drivers. Look at this. Dale Jarrett, one of the really good drivers. Look at this. Signed t-shirt at UPS. And I have a Ernie Irvin signed t-shirt. I know my good drivers for people that really care about the sport.